And welcome to week 3, backstage with Cooper and Matty Johns. Big guest on today, the Prince of Penrith, one of the, if not the best player in the NRL. He's on his way there if he just keeps trying his heart out.
Mate, you're wrong. He's the king of Penrith.
He's the king of Penrith.
He's taken the throne.
Who was the Prince of Penrith before him?
Well, he was the prince. Maybe it was Brandy was the king. Then Gowie was the king. Now Nathan Cleary is the king.
Yeah.
That's some good sevens.
Oh, yeah. Lots of good sevens. MG.
MG
Matthew,
was not a 7.
Have you had much to do with the Clearys before? Because you would have played against Ivan, I would have thought.
I know Ash, his uncle. Of course, I played against Ivan. I like Ivan as a guy, good guy. And I played against his uncle, Josh Stewart. Josh is champion guy. Was a real tough guy. Josh played with Northern Eagles and played a lot of football in North Sydney. It's funny with Nathan because I got a call a number of years back now, of course, by Josh on a Sunday morning. And he called me and said, "Oh, Matty, my nephew, Ivan's son, Nathan, he's making his debut in the Penrith under-20s. Could you send him a bit of a note of good luck?" And I went, "Oh, that's nice." And said, "G'day, young fella. Listen, I hear you're making your under-20s debut. Good luck. Get into it." And I'm thinking to myself, mate, if he plays one under-20s game, for bloody good for him.
And now he's gone, probably played more games than you have, I suppose. How many did you rack up? 100 and... You're 100.
I think 197
That's
in the
right.
NRL. And I played about 30 in England.
Yeah,
Well.
okay.
And a number of tests and origins as well, and a couple of country origins. I could talk about myself all day, but unfortunately, Nathan Cleary's arrived. Now, my initial question, Nathan, to you was going to be: have you and Cooper ever socialised together? But it reminded me that he once gate crashed a family gathering.
I was invited. I was invited. Yeah, you invited me. Well, earlier that
you
day.
invited yourself, but.
That may have happened actually. Earlier that day, we'd done some training. Me, you, and Tyrone May, and I just remember running us off the park.
I was about to say maybe you should have taken a little bit more notice. You wouldn't be fucking sitting here.
This is by choice, guys. And then I received a text message. I don't know if it was from you or T May. I can't remember, but it sounded like there was a big party going up at yours. But there wasn't. I rocked up with all this piss, and I was going, we're going to have the best night ever. And it was just Nathan and his whole family sitting around playing King's Cup, like a wooden table. And I didn't know anyone apart from Nathan. They were like, "Oh, okay, come in." And I got so drunk, I passed out in their living room, and I woke up the next day, like not remembering where I was. And I walked out the back. And I was like, "Where am I?" I was like, seeing Mona Vale Beach. And I was just like, "What?" And I looked back and I'd sort of like stumbled into Nathan's parents' bedroom. Like, 'cause their back door was open. And Ivan was just sort of like laying there asleep with the sheets half on him, but he was sleeping nude. So I could sort of see what was going on downstairs. And it was just it made it very awkward because I don't even know if you know this. You probably would. I mean, you basically run the Panthers now out there. But I, like last year, before I came to Manly last year, I actually interviewed for Panthers.
I heard that.
And I obviously didn't get the job.
Another right decision they made.
Yeah. But they went with Jack Cogger, which was a great decision. But we're sitting there like in the interviews, and me and I, like through the Zooms, and me and Ivan were just I'd always just make like a little joke, and Ivan just wouldn't laugh. and I sort of knew, I was like, I'm not getting this gig, eh?
Oh man, times. I suppose, Nathan, and it's not a tough question, but one to get out of the way straight away. Look, a team's the nature of your success, Penrith, the relationships, the friendships, the chemistry, all you blokes are great mates. Was it tough for you with the Jerome thing in the off-season? Was it a little tough?
It was. I think over time you begin to realise that, it is a business. I think when it first started happening, like when we had that first year of success, and then you see people start to leave, like Birdo was probably the first big one to leave, followed by Kicks, Uppy, Critter this year.
Yeah.
So you become a little bit used to it. I think Romy's probably been the most difficult one because obviously a halves partner. We've been lucky enough to share that success. We've been playing together at Penrith since we were 15 years old. But, at the end of the day, he's got to make the right decision for his family. He's got 3 beautiful kids now. He's got a partner. He's got to do those things. He's been lucky enough to have success with all his close mates that he grew up with, and now it's a new challenge for him. So I think you can see it from both sides. It is hard, but, that's just the era we live in with the salary cap.
How is it now at training?
Yeah, it's good. Honestly, it feels normal. He's just sort of reintegrating. He's coming off shoulder Rico. So I think the best thing for it was just getting it done. I think with the ones in the past, like they've all been done pretty much as soon as the season started or at some stage. And then, once that's out of the way, it's sort of, full steam ahead to what we want to do this year. And now that this Romy thing's done with the Tigers, it feels normal and it feels like we're building towards something special again.
We're going to talk about your dad being, your coach and that sort of relationship. But what's it like, with this contract stuff and boys potentially getting dropped and things like that? What's that like for you as his son and, the chief playmaker in the team? Does it make it awkward?
Originally, that was probably the biggest concern about the sort of father-son relationship as player and coach. But, I just removed myself from those situations. Like, at the end of the day, I'm my own entity and Dad's his own entity. Like, we're 2 different people. We may be blood-related and family and, it's special. But in terms of those sort of scenarios, like, I take myself out of that and I'll always stay boys and mates no matter what happens. And I don't want that to interfere with relationships I have.
Now, Nathan, later on we're going to talk about that unbelievable 17 minutes in the grand final just passed. It is the best pressure performance I've ever seen in my life in football. It was unbelievable. But that 17 minutes, Nathan, you're already a star. But that 17 minutes has elevated you another couple of levels, right? And with that comes a certain amount of surrender in your private life. How has the last 3 months been for you?
Yeah, it's you're right. Like, it has been a bit different. I think when you go from not playing NRL to playing NRL, it becomes a little bit different. Then once you start playing State of Origin, it then elevates a bit more again. But yeah, after the grand final, it's probably the most I've ever been recognised. Like, I went to Melbourne, went to Perth, got recognised both there. I've been there before and not really been recognised. And now this time around, everyone sort of in those places, they watch the grand final and State of Origin is basically just that. Like, they won't watch through the year. So recognised more there. I was getting recognised even in America, sort of here and there. And then, obviously private life is, everyone becomes more interested in that. So it's been something to adapt to. I think I'm naturally an introverted and quite private person, but once you sort of realise that it's things that you can't control, you just got to find ways around it and just deal with it, I guess.
Mate, you're getting papped. You know what's happening? Long angle lenses, things like that. You go from the back pages to more on the front pages. How'd your mum handle that?
She hated it. She was just couldn't understand it really. There was one where, just over the Christmas break, the paps were out the front of my parents' place. So my little sisters walked out and they're papping her. And she's run inside like rattled, obviously. She's only 17 and then mum's come out and just lost it at this bloke sort of papping. And then they were waiting out the front of my house as well. So it was just weird. Like, I just couldn't understand why people would want to do that. But
Cooper gets frustrated by the paparazzi that they won't take his photo.
He's actually messaging them saying, I'm going to be here.
He chases
hey guys,
them.
I'm down at the beach, guys, my shirt off. Down. You talk about you being a bit of an introvert, which you probably are with that media sort of side. Like, as outside of that, you're pretty extroverted with your mates and whatnot. Things like I've been doing work with Cole and Jackie O, and they're always, they're not a sporting show. They don't know anything about sport, but they're always, like, I've told you this before, the last year, they're always pepping me to try to get you on the show. What's around, even with the podcasting and interviews, what's your sort of space around doing media?
Yeah, well, speaking of Colin Jackie, I was woken up by you and Colin Jackie with 30 missed calls one morning at the end of last year. So that was great. But no, I think I don't mind it. I think part of me is like I like to be quite reserved with what I say, but the podcast space is something that I really enjoy, particularly with people I feel comfortable with, and I can sort of give more insight and about sort of things I've done and all that and what I'm feeling. I think I feel much more comfortable in the podcast space rather than with, I guess, mainstream media.
What about a night out, Nathan, when you go out these days? How do people approach you? How's that changed, and how do you handle it?
Yeah, it varies. It's kind of, I guess everyone knows that there's going to be dickheads out there that are going to say stuff, and the more they drink, the worse they get. But to be fair, there's actually a lot of people that are really respectful. They're really nice. If someone asks me for a photo, I'm more than happy to take a photo. I'd prefer if people would come on and ask and try and take sneaky photos or try and catch me doing the wrong thing, which I feel like the society we live in now is like there's a lot of that. There's a lot of sort of, they want to catch you out doing the wrong thing. They want to be taking photos of you on the
reaction.
sly, and they want a reaction. So dealing with that, I've always felt like I've dealt with that quite well. And, we are in a privileged position at the end of the day. So I like sort of having fans and being able to give my time to them. There is sort of times where you wish you could just sort of have your own space, even out to dinner some nights with family or friends, like sometimes just eating the dinner just to have no photos in that time. But that's what comes with the gig, I guess.
It's a privilege in a lot of ways. You think about before you're an NRL star and if people want to come out and get a photo or an autograph, and it's really important not to forget that, sometimes. Yeah. And the other thing too, Nathan, is, I'm not talking about the people that try to get a sneaky photo, and there are arseholes out there, but a lot of people, they go up to, they don't know what to say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's for them, they're trying to make some sort of connection.
Yeah.
It's Yeah. Well, I mean, how do you handle your superstardom, Coop?
I'm pretty good. I don't take photos anymore for free. Obviously, yeah. I do.
You take after your uncle then.
Yeah, charge a fairly decent price. Let's go back a little bit, Nate. Let's go to your childhood. You grew up in New Zealand. Is that correct?
I was born on the Northern Beaches.
Yeah.
Actually not far from here, down in Hay Street. So my parents lived in Coleroy. Then moved over to New Zealand when I was about 3 years old. Dad did a stint there playing and then later coaching. So
how long were you there for?
About 10 years. So pretty much most of my childhood was there.
Have you got a passport?
No, I got an Aussie passport. I could have had a New Zealand passport, but because I had two Aussie parents, and the idea was to always move back here. My little brother and sister both got Kiwi passports.
It's interesting. It's having a Kiwi passport. We found out a fair bit about Kiwi passports when Brandon came here that time, Brandon Smith. So he arrives and everyone's fairly drunk, and Brandon had just realised that he'd left his passport up at the Sunshine Coast. So
typical, for someone who's playing the NRL for the most unorganised, just how he's lasted this long, I don't know.
And his girlfriend at the time, her mother was very, very sick, and so they had to get back, and it was like pandemonium. Anyway, my last memory, because I was absolutely maggot, was like I rang a bloke at News and said, "Do you know the number of I can speak to someone at the New Zealand embassy?" Right. Anyway, all I remember is waking up in the morning. Trish come in and said, "Oh, we got the result. We got it." And I went, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "You're on the phone for almost an hour to the New Zealand embassy until they finally said, 'Can you put someone else on the phone? We can't understand you.'" And they can't refuse you. If you have a New Zealand passport, you cannot be refused at the border of New Zealand.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he could have just shown up anyway?
He could have shown up.
Oh, wow.
But we went a long way around.
What do you remember as your dad as a player?
Not much. The only game I specifically remember was his last game. It was a grand final in 2002. They lost to the Roosters. That's the only memory I have watching him like live. I watch games now. You know that they have the old ones on TV.
Yeah.
He's sort of just skinny bloke. He was always sort of, the games I've watched, he just sort of did his job. Like he was pretty straight up and down, but he's a good goal kicker, pretty good defender for a fullback, and yeah.
He was a very, very good player. Very good under pressure. You've inherited his temperament. We played him in 97. There was a game, it actually was on just recently. It was at Newcastle in a mud heap, and we're leading 14-8, and there's literally only seconds left. And as Andrew Walker used to do, he does a double chip over the top and scores, but it's right in the corner, right? We've got a full house. It's 14-12. Full-time siren goes, and we're giving it to your old man. And this, and as you imagine, we're trying to put him off. He just put the ball down, walked back, kicked it straight over the black dot, and turned and said, "Fuck you guys."
He's told me that story, I reckon, 100 times. Every time he gets drunk, I reckon he tells me that story of the goal kick that day, and he's trying to tell me how windy it was and all that. So I don't know much about his career, but that actually specific one, he's told me a few times.
Okay, what do you remember? Because when he coached in New Zealand at the Warriors, he was a really young coach. He's a long way off winning 3 in a row. What do you remember about him handling the stress of the job back then?
Yeah, I think it wasn't too bad. It was very him being a coach has made me not want to be a head coach, if that makes sense. Like I just sort of the stress that he goes through and just the roller coaster, and there's just so much more to it than probably what meets the eye for the outside world. At the time, it was, there probably weren't many expectations of the Warriors at the time. Like they had quite a young team. They were always quite inconsistent. He was a young coach, but by the end of his sort of tenure there, they actually made the grand final, and it was pretty cool to see that. It's probably my first taste of having a dad as an NRL coach. Like at school, like if they were winning, it was everyone was loving me. I was popular as. Then they lose the game, then they're sort of into you. So
what's going on with the old man, bro?
It was like, it was interesting to sort of deal with that and move through it. I actually sort of feel sorry for my younger brother now, because he's now got me and dad, and he has to deal with that at a young age too. But I think I probably noticed the way it affected my dad later in life as I got older. When I was younger, I was sort of just, I didn't really understand.
Is it weird playing Shaun Johnson?
Yeah, so weird. I remember the first time we played him, I was over in New Zealand. I was an 18-year-old. It was a close game. Went to Golden Point. He scored literally right at the end. I think he stepped me and ran straight through to score. And it was just a full circle moment. Like I remember being at Mount Smart Stadium in the gym, just being in awe of his presence. Like me and my little brother were hanging around him, kicking the ball with him, and just thought it was the best thing ever. Then to actually verse him, it's like,
what a crossover moment, where you're the best player in the game and he has his best ever season.
I know. Yeah, it's honestly unbelievable. Like, never would have dreamt that.
Kurtz, before we move on, can you tell us the Natty Wood story?
So this has just been regurgitated through like my parents, but
to let people know, Natty Wood was a player. He's a massive scallywag. He was a terrific player. Tigers, Roosters, and went over to the Warriors.
Yeah, so he's quite notorious for pulling pranks, I think. And he thought one day that he would go to our place and try and scare my dad. So he somehow got into the house. It was upstairs. Got into the house, was wearing a mask, and it was like pitch black in the room. And then anyway, so he's assuming that dad's going to walk up and he'd scare him. But I was probably like 3 at the time. That's horrible. So I wandered into mum and dad's room, and he just jumped out with this mask. And I've just absolutely shit myself, just crying. And then mum and dad would come up, like, what's going on? And he was just standing there. So.
Oh, man.
He's Natty Wood's type with Fletch, isn't he?
Yeah. They're really thick. They're really thick. I had a beer recently with Natty. He's just one of the... I was going to tell the story. I cannot tell the story.
Good fighter, if I'm not wrong.
Well, Garth was the Australian champion. He beat Chock, but they tell me that Natty's a better fighter than Garth.
Oh,
so, and his old man Barry was a terrific footballer and could obviously really blue, because he was basically Kerry Packer's bodyguard / right-hand man for I think about 20 years. Yeah. So...
let's go into your dad coaching. So you debuted under Anthony Griffin, is that right?
Yeah.
So that sort of year before that, or it might have been during that year, your dad was sacked by Penrith. What was that like for you?
Yeah, so 2015, dad got sacked, and it was bizarre at the time. Like 2014, they made the prelim final. They had heaps of injuries. Like no one expected them to get there. They made the prelim. Then the next year, 2015, again, heaps of injuries. They didn't have the best squad on paper, but it was sort of like, he's still doing well. Like you just assumed that he would keep coaching. And then sort of out of nowhere, it was just like he came home one day and said, Gus sat him down. out the front of Panthers and was just said, "You're done." So we were just like in shock. And at the time, it's sort of like, it's just the initial feeling of sort of resentment, like what's going on, like just couldn't understand it. But to be fair, like Dad was so good with it. Like he was obviously disappointed, but he always finds a silver lining in most things, and that's something that I think he's passed down to me. He's just trying to stay positive, and he said to me, I think it's a good opportunity for you to carve out your own path, and it's not an ideal situation for me, but I'll work it out. Like you should stay at Penrith and see what you can do. All your mates are here, so yeah, I saw that as sort of a bit of a challenge, and he was right. Like if it was home for me, all my mates were there. There was sort of like a pathway to play in first grade. I didn't think it would come that quickly, but I thought that there was a chance.
You weren't in the first grade squad at this time?
No. So I reckon just after he got sacked, I signed my first like proper deal. But so that was 2015. For 2016, 2017, I was meant to just be like cup. So I wasn't even a top 30 deal. And then when I turned 21, he's like, "Oh, that's a real good opportunity for you to try and crack it. Like you're going to be in the top 30 then," and whatever it was at the time. And then, it just so happened that I did a cup pre-season, then it just fast-tracked and ended up signing a deal and then played the next week.
It's funny you talk about silver line. Like, imagine if your dad wasn't sacked, and you can only imagine your dad would have been really hard on you coming through. You probably wouldn't have debuted as early as you did.
Well, he even says it now. Like, if he was the coach, there's absolutely no way I would have played when I was 18. And the way it worked out, Peter Walsh got moved to hooker. I played one game Jamie Soward, then he dropped Jamie Soward, and I ended up being like the halfback. Like there's no way Dad would have done that. So
he did. That's what he did with Sean Johnson. Johnson looked like he was ready 18 months earlier, and Ivan just held him back for the betterment of his career. I remember having a conversation with Ivan and saying, "Why don't you throw the kid in?" And he said, "I don't think he's quite ready." I said, you want to be careful because you might be preparing him for the next coach. But as it turned out, it was the best thing for Sean's career. It must have been weird at home that week when he was coaching against you. The Tigers, that must have been strange.
Yeah, it was weird. Mum hated it. She just didn't even know what to do. Like we'd still be having dinner together, and it was like often we would get home. Like when I was still living at home, we'd get home, we'd sort of talk footy about how each team was going, and we often enjoy talking about footy. That week, it was just no footy chat. It was just sort of deadpanning each other. Mum was just trying to make like awkward conversation, and the family was split. Like my youngest sister was going for the Tigers, my little brother was going for Penrith. So it was funny times. I think even like Dad didn't really like it either. Just so he was so used to sort of watching me, but then coaching against me, he was focused on his team. So I was like,
how was he? Do you reckon? Has he told you now how the video sessions for Tigers would have been that week? Because I imagine you would have been a key part of the video session.
Yeah.
Did he say how he told the players?
I've actually never asked him that. I don't know why. Maybe I need to. It'd be interesting.
Because I remember round one at Manly Shane Flanagan was assistant coach at Manly last year, and round one we were playing against Kyle, and he was like, we sort of thought he just wouldn't acknowledge it at all, but Flano kind of got in there the first thing, and he said to Hamole at one stage, because Hamole was like, "I'm just going to run at him all day. Like, I'm just going to run at him all day." And he said, he said, just to sort of break the ice, Shane goes, "Yeah, so just make sure, be careful about that halfback on the left because you can really tackle. He really hit."
Obviously, he was joking.
I think he might have been. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's arrogant. Dad would have been saying the opposite. Arrogant was saying, "Fucking get into
it."
Yeah.
How does Ivan coach you these days? Is he harder on you than the rest, or are you just another player?
Nah, just another player. I think he's still he will let. In a video session, say if I do something well, he will let one of the other coaches say that I've done it well. There's not often he'll say, "Oh, he's my son's the one doing that well."
Yeah. It's like Jerome need to work on that. Brian, think about that. Nathan, brilliant.
Yeah, he takes himself out of that conversation, which I enjoy. I think the way he is as a coach is how he is to me. He's pretty cool. He's never really blowing up. He's never really given people too many praises either. And the way he'll tell me things is he'll just pull me aside and say, "Oh, you're doing this, you're doing that," which I enjoy and I respond to that well. So it feels pretty normal now. At the start, it was a bit weird, but I think we've found sort of that happy medium, and it helps when you're going well, I guess.
Before we move on into the most successful seasons, your debut, was that against Melbourne I think I remember watching it. Was it an afternoon game in Melbourne?
It was a night game in Melbourne.
In Melbourne, yeah. What was that like? Because I imagine the big three would have been playing.
Yeah, Billy Slater wasn't playing, but Cam Smith and Cooper Cronk just backed up from Origin.
Yeah.
So that in itself was just like, holy shit, like what's going on here? So I got told on the Tuesday that I was going to debut. We were playing on the Saturday. I was shitting myself the whole week. I was just like, this can't be real. Melbourne, they were the best team at the time. And then anyway, came around. I was never been more nervous in my life. We got the ball first, had the first set of the game, and Sowie, who was my half partner, goes, "Oh, you get the first kick."
Oh, it's
like,
not what you want to hear.
Get yourself in the game. I was thinking, oh God, kick pressure, all this. Kicked it, went to like chase down. It was just a real welcome to first grade moment. Jesse Bromwich just like bumped me. He goes, "Oh, we're coming at you. You're all game, you bitch." I go, "Okay, great." Proceeded to make 40 tackles, I think, that game, and it was just like, I was so tired, but it was just
well. You did. I'm watching. You did really, really well. They put a lot of pressure on you, and for people that like for a playmaker, Melbourne is a really difficult place to play because slippery, dewy. The ball doesn't hit your hands that well.
Yeah, I was slipping all over the place. I was like a deer on ice that night.
I'm just sitting there just for a second there, just thinking about like fathers coaching the sons. I was just thinking, back in the day, I coached you at Narrowena. Remember that? That was
yeah. Under 15s, under 14s.
I don't know. It was.
Talk about a coach being tough on their son. Mate, he was like a dictator, eh? You didn't give me anything. Did not give me a lick of no compliment, nothing.
Was that because you weren't playing well?
Probably playing shit as well.
But I was the perfect coach. I mean, always disciplined.
Talk about him being the perfect coach. We played a game in Cromer. At Cromer, it was a Friday night game. Dad had been on the piss all day with George Gregan at some speaking gig. He was probably getting cash for it. And he showed up.
Charity, mate. I do things. Unlike you, mate, sometimes I do things for charity.
That's ridiculous. And he rocked up at halftime. We're getting beat like 20-0. And he was so drunk. He thought we were winning. And he walked into the change room and he was going, "You know what?" And he started getting real emotional, started crying, and he goes, "This group in here, we could go all the way." And at this stage, we were coming like dead last in the local comp, like no chance of winning finals. He goes, "This team could go all the way. All you need to do is you got to stick together. You got to have each other's fucking backs." It was so fucking. Everyone still talks about it.
I honestly thought you were leading, and I remember coming out and they scored after our time. I said, "Whoa. What's that?" Said the assistant coach, "That's 20-6," and he goes, "No, mate." He said, "It's 26-0." I went, "Fuck, okay." Nathan, you've been in the last 4 grand finals. You've won 3. Tell me about what did you learn from the first one, the one that you lost?
Yeah, that's probably been one of the biggest learning curves I've had in my career so far, and I'm actually grateful for it now. At the time, it was worst thing ever. Like, I just was hating myself. But I think the way it shaped my career from that moment, particularly in big moments like under pressure, bouncing back from mistakes, like it's really helped me. I had to sort of address that game after it happened, watched it back as hard as it was, but just sort of find where it went wrong and how I could be better for the future. And it was just like thinking back at it, it's kind of a blur. Like it was just it just felt like a dark night. It was wet. Like we were just getting bullied. I think us as a group actually learned a lot just because of, a grand final is just such a different game to a regular season game. And Melbourne knew that, obviously. They had the experience. And, I just had a couple moments. After the intercept, that's been a big turning point for me in my reaction to mistakes going forward. Like after the intercept, I was in flight mode, like out of the game for the next 30 minutes, I reckon, just thinking back to that. And it was actually affecting the way I was playing. I just wasn't in it. Like I was there, but I wasn't. Like I was just blank.
Are you someone that can move on quick? Like obviously you're saying then you didn't, but like, are you someone naturally who, because it's a hard thing when you're in a game, you make a vital error. Are you someone that has had to learn how to just play almost without a conscience and move straight on, or have you had that in you always?
Nah, I've definitely had to learn that, and I'm still learning it, to be honest. Like it's still something that doesn't come straight away to me. You think of someone like Jim Maloney, he was the goat at it. He just throw 2 intercepts a game, and it's sweet. But yeah, I was someone that I'd big overthinker, and particularly in games, like in the biggest moment, it was like the biggest game of my career at that stage. Threw an intercept, went down to score, and then the way I reacted to that just harmed the team and harmed myself. It just didn't even give us opportunity to get back in the game. And I sort of fast forward that to this year. Like, I had similar moments where, I made mistakes and let in tries, but the way I reacted to that was so much better, and it actually sort of helped us.
And it's interesting playing against a really tough, older, experienced side who've been there before. There's a great story. It just reminded me, you said it, when the Rumble in the Jungle, Muhammad Ali beat George Foreman. No one thought that Ali could win that. And Foreman tells the story that when they walked in to have the meet in the middle, touch the gloves, Ali said to him, he goes, "Look at you." He said, "I bet you had my poster on your wall. I bet you're my hero." And he said at that point, Foreman went, "I can't beat him." Yeah. And I bet you when you go, back then when you're coming up against guys like Smith and Cronk and Slade, you're going, fucking hell. Yeah. It's tough for a young side.
It was, and because that year had gone so well for us, I think we won 17 games in a row. Everything was just sort of smooth sailing. As soon as we got in a game where it was like, shit, things aren't going right. They were just so physical. They were sort of bullying us, and they had people like Cameron Smith. You're like, oh, he doesn't usually lose games when they're in front. So that was playing in your mentals rather than just sort of focusing on ourselves and actually realizing that there was so long left in the game. 80 minutes is a long time, and you probably don't realize that till you get a bit of experience and you play a bit more. And one mistake in that game, it can be made up by so many more moments that follow it. And we ended up only losing that game by 6, and we honestly wouldn't have started playing till the last 20 minutes. So that was a big learning lesson. I remember actually watching the game back with a few of the boys. No one wanted to do it, but I think it actually served us well just to address it. It's sort of, I think, one thing I like about watching games back is once you watch it, you can write down your thoughts, then it's done. It's in the mentals, it's in your memory, but you're not thinking about it as much, and you can sort of move forward.
You spoke about the bully thing then, Melbourne being. I was in the stands for this game.
What did you learn just watching carrying the water? What did you?
I'd actually had a few from the hotel. We were staying at the Pullman. I'd raided the minibar before and had a few vodkas, so I kind of can't remember a lot of the.
And you're raining on me. I'm basically coaching under the 14 side. I'm the bad guy. You turn up at the grand. What happened? What would happen if the halfback?
Had gone down during the. I was in a stand. I was in a suit.
But I'm talking in the warm up.
No, I wasn't 18th man. I couldn't even. There was no chance of that. I was, and I think they would have picked someone out of the crowd to play over me at this stage. Billag was off me. But you're talking about bully, because I spoke to boys who, were at Penrith for that grand final, going into the next year. For those people that don't know a lot about rugby league pre-seasons, you do a lot of identity work, coming up with your team's identity, because that year you guys had this amazing run, but you guys weren't, the bullies of the NRL. That next year you guys turned into this, kick pressure, hitting people late, not in a grubby way, but you turned into this real competitive side, and it was shit to play you guys because even when we'd kick downfield, you're getting in the way, bumping it. There's just little things that make the game so much harder. Is that something that you guys sat down as a team and said, we want to be what Melbourne did to us, we want to do that to every team?
Well, we just didn't want that to ever happen again. We didn't want to get sort of bullied like that again. It was a shit feeling. And I think you're right, through that pre-season the next year, it was just really trying to find that, ruthless edge. And we knew if we could do that against each other in training, it would be easy to do it on game day. I think that pre-season, I hated it as a back, but we did a lot of wrestle, a lot of boxing, just a lot of stuff like that. It was a real tough pre-season, but it really set us up well for what was to come. And yeah, I think it was all about that ruthless edge, just doing whatever we had to do to win, and that was our main focus. And yeah, once we sort of crossed that line to get on the field, it was us against them, and there was no holding back.
Preparation. I'm just sort of thinking about how you find yourself in your sweet spot in your preparation, because preparation dictates, winning and losing. It's funny, Nathan. Here am I saying to you, I can tell when you're on. When I always look at certain players, and there's indicators that tell me he's ready to go. I watch you when you run on the field. When you run on the field and you accelerate, and I see when you sort of get yourself, you have a really steely gaze. You look aggressive, and the most telling point for me when I know you're on is your willingness to run the ball early. Is that, am I right there?
Yeah. I reckon I've always played my best games when I've sort of got that, I guess, aggressive mindset where I'm not scared to make tackles. I'm not scared to run the ball. I'm not sort of overthinking things. I'm just doing them as it comes. And I think that does come back to preparation, but a lot of it is the mental side of it. I've learned that over time too. Like, I think the mental side, particularly in like top tier football, is such a big part of it. Like, the physical side's quite easy to do. You stretch, you ice bath, you train. It's all set out for you. The mental side probably is a bit more where you have to reflect on yourself and find ways to get yourself in that right frame of mind to play. And I agree. I think I've always played my best games like that.
It's funny, like for a half, particularly like because you're running the field, you're swinging each way, you're making the calls, you're dictating where the ball goes. It is so easy to lose your running game. You got to maintain the discipline that you're going to carry the ball and run. For you, is that a discipline?
Yeah, I think so. I think particularly because ball playing doesn't come naturally to me, and it's something that I've had to work quite hard on. I feel like sometimes I can fall into the trap of I'm thinking too much about, ball playing, or something happened the week before and I want to try to fix it with sort of setting people up or putting people through space. But I think those opportunities come off the back of being a threat with the run. So I think just trying to remind myself of that, and they're things that Dad will remind me of, just little things like that sort of get me in the right frame of mind. Like, don't forget to run, keep running the ball. And
it sounds simple,
it
but
does.
It's got to be conscious of it.
Yeah, it's very easy to forget, and just like a little trigger like that really helps me. And I'm a big believer of preparation just giving you peace of mind, and little things like that just gives me that peace of mind and knows I'm in the right headspace.
Your Penrith's combinations and the football IQ from the winger all the way to the front rower is, I've played against you guys a couple times now, and it is so hard because you guys know exactly when to pull the trigger. The front rowers know whether we need to take one more to get a quick play of the ball. How hard is it? Because it's, I went to a new club last year. Now I'm retired, obviously, but how hard is it to build those? Never, ever. Thanks, guys. Blokes like Cliff Lyons, Jeff too.
The bloke who was most shattered when you tried was William Kickow.
Thanks, Nathan, for laughing. He was the one that bloody put him over me about 6 times. Really derailed my whole career. Well, he did. How hard? Stop laughing. How hard was it to build those combinations, and also for new players to come to the club? How hard is it to instill that sort of football IQ?
I guess now it seems easy because everyone just sort of slots into their position in the team. And, I think the one thing about our squad at the moment is everyone is just so diligent about nailing their role. They're very diligent with doing extras, very, very diligent with video. And it's just become a sort of culture we've built. So if you're new now and you come into the team and you're not doing those things, you're the sort of outlier. Where I feel like at other clubs or previously, it's the opposite way around. So I think we've been very lucky with the young crop of guys we've had come in, also the mix of experience of just what it takes to be a successful team. And that was built over a while. Like when I first came in, it wasn't really like that. And then when Dad first came, 2019, it definitely wasn't like that. And the biggest thing we needed to change was that shift to being what a successful team is about. And a lot of that was communication. We weren't a very good communicating team, and we did have to build that. And as I said, we're lucky with guys coming in. We had Critter, Bizza, Romy came through then. All these guys that brought this new energy, they brought that communication, and it was just a really good mix of what we had at the time. And now we've got young guys coming through, and they actually do with our Pathways program, they sort of prepare them to be an NRL player before they actually are. So we've got young guys coming into pre-seasons now, and they're just so ready, and they're just not they're not falling behind. They know the systems, they know what it takes, and we're very lucky in that regard. And honestly now it feels simple, but it wasn't a simple thing to build.
Who's someone that's, just a little question off the top, who's someone who's unassuming with how good their communication is on the field? Because there's always one that you wouldn't expect to be a really good communicator, other than yourself and Jerome, obviously. Who's someone that really is a real on-the-field talker, organising shape?
Dylan Edwards is the best talker in our team, I reckon, but more so defensive line. His line organ, all that stuff is incredible, and he's just a constant voice out there. He helps everyone out so much. I think someone that's probably surprising is James Fisher-Harris. Like, he won't talk organised in shape, but he'll just say things that have so much meaning, even off the field. Like, he'll say things in meaning every now and then. Everyone's just listening so hard. But even on the field, like, he's always talking about shape that's coming, like, in tackles. Like, he's actually a really good communicator on the field, where he's definitely not naturally someone that talks a lot. So I think it's been cool that, I think, if you're not someone that naturally talks, you know it's for the betterment of the team. Everyone decides to do it, which is special.
You know, like, halves, playmakers very much at the mercy of the people around them. We were talking before about, people who push people and, get in position and a team being synchronised like you blokes are, because, like, I think the very best teams when Melbourne Storm were dominating and, Roosters going very well, and you blokes in particular, probably better than all of them, is the ability to play structured football fast. And not needing time to get your plays on and your sequences on. In asking how much work you do on that, with familiarity in the combinations, like Tom Brady, seeing he used to take Endelman and Gronkowski, they used to go to the Badlands and Dakota and go out there and go into like a week camp where they would just synchronise everything. For you personally, how much work do you do with the blokes around you to get them synchronised?
Yeah, I do a lot. I think a lot of it is integrated into our team training, but there's also a lot sort of outside of it, whether it be like conversations. Sort of a lot of the vocabulary around conversations now is like, if I do this, you do that, which I think helps a lot, because in those, I feel like in the high pressure moments in an NRL game where it's quite fast, it's so hard to be on a play, come back for another play, and be having to move all different pieces around. Whereas if we go there, I'm coming back with, as soon as I call this, I want you doing this, you doing that, and everyone just falls into those spaces, which I think helps, particularly with the spine. Like, everyone sort of follows each other around, but it's then important with, I reckon, back rowers. Timing becomes important, like how I turn the corner or how I beat the foreman to then draw in, and where I want them, how fast I want them running, what lines I want them running, and it sort of just becomes like muscle memory. I think that can only come through physical repetition.
What are you most natural at? Is it long menu or short? What I mean by that is setting up a long menu, like, right, let's go through to the far post, is what we're looking at, or just playing like short menu where it's just like, mate, jam a hole outside him. Quick, fast call. What's your greatest strength?
I think the easiest one for me is like the short menu, where it's like, say if I'm on a short side, all right, I'm going to be the foreman, I want you punching outside three man. That's a really easy combination to build. Where with the long ones, it's like, if it goes from Yoey to me, maybe to Romy, it's then hard to get all the timing right, all in the same wave. So I think that takes a lot longer to sort of develop.
And in good sides, recognise shape too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which is what was cool about the end of last year, the way we sort of changed it when Cogs came into the team, where it probably was him first receiver a bit more, and I was sort of just following him around floating. I think it just gave a bit of a different look for defences, where I think sometimes we could fall into the trap of, Yoey's so good at being up the front and being there as first receiver a lot, but teams do so much video these days. You've got to give them different looks every now and then. So that was a cool sort of evolution to be a part of.
And over the last few years, you've had heaps of highs, winning 3 grand finals, but you've had some small sort of, lows as well. How has social media had an effect on you? Like, you're obvious. I've seen you you're on social media, but do you take much out of it? Like, how have you learnt to deal with that? Because you're big on your mental skills, and that's something that can really throw players off confidence-wise. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think it's so prevalent these days. Like, social media is such a big part of our lives. I am on it, but I think, I probably don't rely on it too much for how I'm feeling. I think when you become reliant on social media to, on how you're feeling each day, then it becomes a problem, because if things are going well, you're playing well, you're getting all these nice messages, you really enjoy reading them. As soon as you have a bad game, you get bad messages and they affect you a lot more. So I think that's something I learned over time. Like, it probably started early on, and I'm glad it happened early in my career, where I probably first started playing Origin. It started to become more like, I was getting a lot more messages, negative sort of stuff, and negative, media around when Dad came back to the club. Probably had my worst start to the year then. So I got to learn through that process. It was hard at the time, and you know, I was just had such a fear of other people's opinions. Like there were people I'd never met in my life. They don't even have a profile picture on Instagram, but they'd send me a message and I'd be reading it and it'd be affecting me. Like, why is this the case? It just sounds so stupid. But, you know, I just think if you get so caught up in, like, the good, the bad's going to affect you as well. So I just try and keep that equilibrium. I really sort of knuckled down on whose opinions I listen to, who's sort of in my inner circle, and just focusing on what they mean to me and if they're saying stuff, I'll take it on board. If it's, you know, other randoms, like, you know, I might say it, but it's like, you know, whatever.
Heard a podcast with Pete Carroll, who's Seattle Seahawks coach with the NFL, Doc Rivers, who's an iconic NBA coach, and Steve Kerr, of course, you know, Bulls fame and also Golden State Warriors coach. They spoke about the impact of their players with social media, and Doc Rivers said that they had to send a person down in the dressing room because at halftime the players were going in, were racing in to try to beat Doc down there to get in their bags and see what people were saying on social media. And he said he could see their performances either rise or fall in the second half by what these imbeciles were saying.
Yeah, it's crazy, but it's just it's such a weird thing to think about. Like, if you were growing up and you said, "Oh, this random person's going to send you a message and it's going to affect the way you play," I'd be like, as if.
Well, the old days, all you said, people. Mate, I went through the era with no social media. People used to write letters to the editor. So they would. They do it. And so someone would say, "Oh, mate, you know, I'd always had this bloke, fucking punish." And he'd ring me and go, "Mate, I'm just looking after you. Just going to let you know someone wrote a nasty letter to the editor about you, the Newcastle Herald." You fucking go down and look and go, "Fuck, okay." Yeah. But that was as bad as it got. Yeah. Compared to you get hundreds coming through.
I think like part of the realization is like, I reckon maybe a handful of times, usually if I'm out, like drunk people have come up to me and said negative things or like been sort of abusive to me. Like it just never happens where like social media, you see it so often. So it's like, that's just a fake world. Like if that wasn't there, then like I would think that everyone, you know, liked me because everyone that comes up's really nice. They're really,
that's right.
You know, ask for photos, they're fans. So I think that was an interesting way to look at it. Like just live in what's actually happening, not so much what's on the phone. And
the other thing is people used to just write nasty things on the back of a toilet door. You know, that's what Twitter is basically. Twitter is basically
public
people,
toilets.
Yeah,
yeah. Without their thoughts out on the back of it.
Without the glory holes.
Yeah. They still got them as well. It's not looking hard enough.
Well, they fill them in down the road now.
Oh no, ruins your Sundays. With negative comments on a night out, I'm just thinking because you've got a good group of close mates that are outside of footy as well. Me and Jack have met a few of them. A lot of characters in there get pretty loose. You know, I can't imagine you're the type of person that would react to someone. How do your mates handle that? Like, are they? Because I've a couple of shit too. Like, I'm on a night out.
I don't believe.
Yeah,
that.
I know. No positive. It's all negative. But I've got some like mates that'll try to fight them. Do your mates ever, you know, stick up for you like that?
I think it started off like that. Like at the start, they would get the shits, but now it's at the stage where it's quite cool. Like if they know someone's been a derrick, like they'll just go up to them and say, "Mate, like stop carrying on like a dickhead." They're not going to try to fight because then they know that it comes back on me, and they're really aware of sort of, I guess, my situation, which I'm really grateful for. And I guess because they've been around me for so long, and as you say, I really enjoy having that group of mates outside of footy. Like it just, I don't know, it sort of brings me back down to earth, and it's a different sort of connection. They've known me since I was, you know, really young. So, but yeah, on a night out, they're just, they're pretty chill. They do get pretty wild sometimes, but they won't try to fight or anything like that.
Once again, you blokes don't know how lucky you are. When I started playing first grade, I was a stop go man on Cessnock Council. And if you're getting, like, you'd have a shocker or get beat, I was holding the stop go sign. And when the school buses go, I literally will pull my beanie right down. Righto, let's go. That's 17 minutes. Nathan, that's 17 minutes in the grand final. That's 17 minutes which has changed your life. Such a contrast, Nathan, to the first 63 minutes. 63 minutes, that first 63 minutes, you just looked out of sync. What was going on?
Yeah, it was probably a mixture of a few things. Like we had a few opportunities early and we just didn't really ice them. Like we had decent shape. We sort of got to the place we wanted to, but just couldn't score. think that like we've become quite good at sort of being patient. That if we don't score, it's still all right because we're putting work into them. And a part of it, we probably felt like that. Like we're like, all right, they've used a lot of juice, they've made a lot of tackles, but fuck, it would be nice to score a try. We got a lucky one through Mitch Kenny, but I think the try they scored right on half time was a bit of a killer. Like if we had gone in 8-0, it'd be like, all right, we're in a pretty good position. We put the work into them. But then Flegler scores a pretty easy one, 8-6, and yeah, then it was kind of the realisation like, shit, we definitely should have done more. Like the ball was hitting the deck a bit. We just were a bit out of sync. It was a hot night. So we got into half time, and half time was, it was a little bit of a weird feeling. Like it was obviously still confidence, and but then Romy, stuff was going on with him. Like he didn't even know if he was going to come back on. So there was sort of that going on in the background. But then it came out and I was just like, Jesus Christ. Like that sort of 20 minutes from Ezra, it was just like, holy shit, what's going on? Like I came out after half time. We got a 7 tackle set, I think. I kicked it on the 4th tackle. I thought it was the last. Like just was not even thinking. Then the next set, 1-1 after, kicked it dead. Tried to early kick, 7 tackles, and I think they scored that set. So I was like, that was a moment for me. I was like, all right, well, it's a terrible start to the second half. But trying to get back into it, then pretty much Ezra's next 2 tries, I was the one that let him in. So then I was like behind the players, just like,
what are you thinking?
Geez.
What are you thinking there?
Well, I just remember like looking up and just going, fucking hell, like what's just happened? It just happened that quick. Like we're in a position where we're probably not comfortable, but at 8-0, we're like, oh, it's going pretty well. And then before you knew it, it was just like 4 tries on the trot. We're down 24-8. And it's like, it just didn't feel right. Like, it just didn't feel like it would end like that. And it was sort of maybe like a little split second where I was like taking me back to the Melbourne game, where I had a similar feeling. But then I just sort of said to myself, I was like, well, you can't play any worse than this, the way this second half started. So you may as well have a crack. Like, don't get stuck in, oh, you'll just fiddle through the game and not try and make errors. Like, that's just not it. So sort of just got back behind the line. And to be fair, after the last try, like the body language is still good. Like there's still a good energy amongst the boys. It was sort of like, all right, just scrap that. Like I don't know what's happened, but scrap it and just focus on sort of our next 2 sets. Just get back into a bit of a grind and let's see what happens. And as I said before, 80 minutes is a long time. 20 minutes is a long time. And yeah, just I don't even know. And then like I sort of went into this zone where like I can't even describe it now. It felt like an out of body experience. It was so weird. Like I think back at it now, it feels like a movie. Like it didn't even feel like I was the one doing it, but sort of just got in this zone and I didn't even know what I was thinking at the time, but it was just everything started to work a bit. We started to get a bit of a sense back. Then Critter dove on a loose ball and offloaded to Moses, and that was like, all right, now we're sort of on. We've swung the momentum. Then from there, it was just like one thing after the other. And
Geez, I tell you, like the bloke who didn't get a lot of credit of that is Jack Cogger when he come on. Because Jerome, it's funny when you do sometimes, as you blokes know, when you do an injury, going into the next game with is he going to play? Isn't he going to play? You sort of, because you're so conscious and mentally you've got yourself in the right space to handle it. You could see that first week Jerome was good. It was in the grand final. You could see that he was really unsure of it. He was getting hit. He was protecting a little bit. When Cogs come on, he was so decisive and played so straight. Yeah. When Moses scored that try, did you feel Brisbane tighten?
I think I felt that a little bit before that. I think when Critter actually jumped on that loose ball, it might have been, I don't know. I don't know when they ran it on the last, but they ran on the last from like 25 metres out, and it was sort of like, it's like they think they've sort of got it wrapped up, and they sort of stopped playing. Because I remember when Reece Walsh, Stepman, and Ezra scored, that was his third try. I was like, shit, if they keep playing like this, like I don't know how we're going to stop it. But then after that, I don't know, it just sort of felt like we were wrangling it back a bit. And you mentioned Cogs, like him coming on, it gave sort of a new energy, like a new communication energy as well. Like he was just communicating to me, and it kept me in the game. And I was just sort of like, all right, well, he's on, he's believing. So, it sort of gave me a bit more belief. And I was just sort of following him around, telling him what I wanted. And you're right, like he just straightened up the attack so much, and it just gave everyone else so much freedom. Like he was a massive part of that.
Was that his role? Like in training during the week, he's on the bench. I'm sure Ivan would have said, once he comes on, he might have come on as a ball playing lock or something. Was that going to be his role when he came on, or if he came on, that he's just going to play straight, bring energy and attack?
Yeah, well, it was sort of hard for him because you didn't know how he was going to get on. Like, it was sort of, it got to the stage where he didn't know if he was going to get on at all, because if Romy got through, then it would have been fine. And, you know, he touched on Romy, like, he did so well to get out there, but I think you're right. Like, I think he was so focused on, like, defense and not hurting his shoulder, like, it probably hindered his attack a little bit of, like, actually being in the game. And then, then sort of Cogs came on and he was just fresh and sort of, you know, he wasn't going to give up the opportunity. So, yeah, it was, I don't know if you'd say it was his role, but he knew his role in the team once he got on was to sort of bring that belief, that energy, and really just strain us up, which is his greatest strength, I think.
When you set up Stephen Crichton to score in that left corner, what are you thinking there? Like, what's the message getting back from the team? Because it just looked like a completely different side after that.
Yeah, well, that was it's sort of funny. Like, you know, I said before, like, it sort of felt like an out-of-body experience, and it was a long time. Like, 20 minutes is a long time. Like, it felt like before that we were still so far away. Like, and we were just chipping away. Like, I wasn't thinking about the score. I wasn't thinking about how much time was left. Like, I was just trying to get back in the game. And then he scored, which I reckon's like, oh, it's just such an underrated try. Like, I know a lot of people talk about it, but the way he just, like, held Katoni off and then ripped out and put the ball down, like, it's a great grand final try. And I remember looking up, and it was like 11 minutes to go, and we were down by 4.
So much time.
Shit, this is like, we're in this, we've got all the momentum, and there's still so much time. Like, then it became, like, real for me. I was like, fuck, we're a massive chance of winning this. And then, I don't know, the momentum from there, it just felt like we were down there and the whole time. Critter again came up with some massive plays, repeat sets, and
Geez, didn't he have a season? Stephen Crichton. From Origin on, he was unbelievable.
Yeah.
The last try, what do you remember from your last try?
I remember I wanted the play before that. Like, I reckon I would have scored the play before that. Like, I sort of had this thing in my head the whole week. Oh, not the whole week, but we worked on a few things down that left side. And as the game went on and the more threatening Critter got, I sort of knew that Katoni was going to be worried about him. So I thought on the play before, if I got it, there's a good chance that Katoni was going to turn out. And so then I didn't end up getting it. I think he hit Sorrow. And then I was on the short side, and I was like, oh, I still want to do it. Like, I think it's still there. And I just was calling hot. And then by the time the play ball was played, it was like, it just wasn't on. So
There's 4 people there.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
like,
they had an extra number.
I was just like thinking, I was like, oh, it's probably not the right time to call it, but fuck it, let's just do it. Like, let's see what happens. I kind of just wanted the ball. And then I wanted to try beat Renault on the outside, but as I got it, he sort of cut that off. So then it was just sort of, I just guess it was just instinct took over. And then like, it just sort of opened. I couldn't believe it.
A question for you. Another great grand final was the 89 grand final, Canberra versus Balmain, and they score an incredible try. Chicka Ferguson score, crowds going crazy. Mal Meninga says, amongst all the chaos, he's got to still kick the goal. What are you thinking, Mal? I just put the ball down, went back, didn't even think, and kicked it. Now everyone's going crazy. It's 24 all. You've still got to kick that goal. And it's a goal that it's for you, it's just so easy. But what is going through your head, like, at that point? Was there any head noise at all?
Nah. I was more thinking about, like, looking at the clock, like, still 2 minutes. I was like, fuck, Brisbane are probably the one team you don't want to be defending in the last 2 minutes. They just got so much strike. But the goal kick, like, I think because the goal kick I had before that for Critter's try was, like, quite high pressure too. And I kicked it quite well and it went over. So I was thinking, like, fuck, just a goal from in front to win a grand final.
Throw it over.
Yeah, I'm retired with you. I'm moving overseas. I'm done.
Start a podcast.
Start a podcast with Ivan.
Hey,
That was sweet, yeah.
You talk about that just for a second. That 12 minutes. How many scenarios have you done? The last 5 years, because it's a big part of training where the coach will say, righto, the NRL side, this is a 6-minute arm wrestle. You're down. There's 6 minutes to go in the game. You're down by 12 points. How many times have you put yourself in that situation, physically and mentally, over the last 5 years to prepare you for that moment?
Yeah, well, a lot of it's probably come through training. Like, there hasn't actually been too many games where we've been in that position, I don't think, particularly over this sort of last 4-year period. The ones we have been, we probably haven't handled that well. So I think a lot of it comes back to training and just instilling that belief in each other. Obviously, a trainer, it's hard to replicate what it's going to be like in a game, let alone, a grand final against a great side like Brisbane, and it was like 30 degrees that night and just hot. But yeah, I think that was sort of the mental side of it, is like the belief that we could do it. And yeah, we've sort of spoken about how we want to play if we get in those situations. Like, we don't want to just shit ourselves and try and come up with a miracle play straight away, which I think we'd learn from experience. Like, I remember one game against South, it was 2021. It was the first final we had against them. We lost. And it was like 7 minutes to go. We were down by maybe 6. And I put a chip over the top, and they just regathered it. And then we pretty much didn't get a good set for the rest of the game. And it was like realization that 7 minutes is, again, like it's quite a long time. Like, that's at least 3-4 sets. Like, if you then just try and sort of get it in good field position and wrestle it back, like, don't try and make it up. Like, if the chip's on, it's on. Don't just make it up just because you're behind. So I think that all played into it as well. And yeah.
To win 3 in a row in this era is remarkable for a couple of reasons. It's a salary cap era. The other thing about it is there's no secrets in the game anymore, Nathan. You said about, coming up with different shapes and showing them different things. Otherwise, they're going to read it. There's no secrets. Like, the video analysis, it's just, every team is all over you, Blakes. You're the team they're watching all the time, but you go 3 in a row. And what's amazing, too, is you're losing great players. Like Appy, what a loss he was. And then Mitch Kenny comes in. What a player he is. He's just such a great competitor. You lose Steve. You lose with Stephen Crichton. And Spencer's gone. 4 in a row. I know. How you feeling? I mean, to have long-term success, suddenly probably the toughest opposition is yourself. Yeah. And still having that want and that fire in the belly. How's the squad feeling?
It's actually really good. Like, I think that's something that is a question that's often asked, but just being back at training, like the feel around, I think there's obviously belief because of what we've done, but you still look around the team, it's like we've still definitely got the team to do it. And then young guys come in and they bring new energy, and then you sort of want them to feel what we've been feeling the last couple of years, and you want them to experience that, and they really want it, and they're sort of testing us. And I think that the way we train gives us that belief and confidence to do great things, and it's been no different this year. It's probably been even better, to be honest. I don't know. It's just that hunger and addictive feeling of success. You just want to keep chasing it.
How does it feel, Nathan? And you're a modest young bloke, but how does it feel that you're now carrying the aura that Cameron Smith had and other great players throughout history have had? That when teams go into games, the opposition are intimidated by you. How's that feel?
Oh, to be honest, probably not something that I've thought about. Like, I still view myself as someone that's got so far to go. Like, I still feel like I've got so much improvement to make, and I think that's the journey that I enjoy being on. Like, I come into training each day and still get frustrated doing stupid things. I still make the same mistakes that I made when I was 18, but it's the learning process, and I enjoy that. And honestly, I still feel like I'm such a work in progress with such a ways to go, and there's still so many things that I want to do in the game and just really fulfill my potential.
Because as a TV icon, I love it when I turn up and at the things like the Logies, and I can see people fear me. They're intimidated by me. They want to be me. But anyway, that's a different story. Now, Coop, do you want to do a few insights?
Yeah, I actually one more question for you. Obviously the 4 in a row, but what is there any other? You talk about Origin and Kangaroos. What are your goals for them? Like, what's your goals? I imagine Origin's a huge goal for you, and you've got your own personal goals you want to achieve in that. Yeah. What else is there for you to achieve in that?
It's something that I probably don't speak about that much or like to think about that much because it's still a ways away. But yeah, Origin's definitely a big thing for me. Just sort of, I guess, having success on that stage. It's just we just haven't had it, and it's obviously something that just hasn't gone right in the past. I've definitely not played my best footy there, so I think that's something that I want to bring in. I want to bring my best footy to that stage and influence success for New South Wales. Growing up in sort of our era, we just haven't really seen New South Wales that successful. So
He knows as well. He's played 2 and he's lost both of them as well.
Mate, I'll stop you there. 4.
Did you play 4?
Played 4 and lost them all. But I was the best player on the field when I was on there by a mile.
But I just think that's the pinnacle stage, and it's the most ruthless stage. So, yeah, I wanna have my fingerprints on success as well.
Because you've had Origin series where it's been amazing, like New South Wales, we've just dominated the series, and then there's been a few where we've come in as favourites and we haven't won. The ones where New South Wales haven't performed to their potential, how does that knock your club level confidence around for that period of time afterwards?
Yeah, it's, I don't know. I feel like I get more motivation, I guess, going back to club level, because I'm just like, I have this feeling of embarrassment. Like, I'm like, I just don't want to play like that again. So I want to go back and play really well to get my opportunity to get back on that stage. But last year after Origin 1, I just it was the worst I'd felt after a game for a long time. Like, I had that feeling of embarrassment. Like, I just didn't perform the way I wanted to, and I sort of fell into that trap again of just letting the game sort of go past me. Like, I just wasn't fully in it. Like, I was second guessing everything, and you can't do that, especially in Origin. And then, funnily enough, came back to club level that weekend and did my hammy. So I reckon it was just the mental stress of that actually affected the physical side of me, which was an interesting thing to take on board. But I think I've learnt lessons and continue to do so, and hopefully can apply them in the future.
Well, we've got a little menu of questions for you as well, Nathan.
Take control, Coops.
I will.
Lovely.
Take the reins, son.
Feel free to answer them as well if you want. Matthew, favourite movie of all time, Nathan?
That's so tough.
There's a lot out there.
I would go probably Inception.
Oh,
Great
great.
that one?
Yeah, good. Leonardo DiCaprio. Yeah. One of the great twists.
Yes.
Like a cliffhanger. You wouldn't have seen it. You're not that kind of guy, are you, Matthew?
What sort of guy am I? Because it's a very cerebral movie. Are you saying that I wouldn't get it? Or?
No, but you. I feel like you would lose interest in it.
Why?
Really?
Well, have you seen it?
No.
Exactly.
So I love a twist in a movie. I'm a big sort of plot.
You ever seen Primal Fear?
No.
Oh,
good.
One of the greatest. It's probably the best twist of all time.
Usual Suspects. Seen that? Spoiler alert.
Don't
Kevin Spacey's Kaiser Soze.
Well, he's kind of ruined it for you there.
It's incredibly cerebral.
Yeah, but Primal Fear. I'll message you.
Yeah, please.
It'll blow your mind when you see it. Favorite song of all time?
This is so hard because it just depends on how you're feeling. But anytime I hear it, Thinking About You by Frank Ocean, it's just quite chill and yeah.
I like that song as well.
You like that song?
Matthew, you wouldn't know it. But
I don't know it.
you don't know
but,
it. We'll play it after.
I'll play it when I do my usual thing at 6 o'clock every night. Sit on the front porch, drink and cry.
You
are
are
song
doing
for that, actually.
Yeah. If you could be any athlete in the world all time, who would it be?
It's actually funny because your dad just gave me the book of him, but Tiger Woods.
Really?
Yeah. I just think, I don't know. I just look at him just as a god figure. I love my golf, but just what he was able to do, the sort of ups and downs he had in his career off the field, off the course. He's super impressive, and I just think golf is quite a unique sport in the mental space of things too.
Because you love it. What do you play off?
I play off 12, but
You're trying to get that down to single digits?
Trying to. It's a grind.
What do you play off, Coop?
I don't play.
Okay,
I play socially. I'll go if the boys are like, oh, let's play golf. I'll go and play and just I'm more entertainment for them. I'll have a hit and it'll spray into the rough.
I'll drive the drinks cart. That's about it. But
yeah.
Before I did that, I was playing off 11.
No. All right. If you could invite one person out to Penrith to play at your estate, your acreage, your mansion as such, and they could play 3 songs. Who's the artist and what are the 3 songs?
So are we talking about if they're coming out for a party? Am I throwing a party?
Well, let's just say it's your group of that close group of mates you've got that you went to America with. Yeah. It's just those lads and them.
An artist.
I'll come as well.
Yeah.
If Dad can come as well.
And,
Jack as well.
Jack, yeah.
And 3 songs.
Yeah, so a person comes along, any artist in the world, and they come and they're going to perform 3 songs for you and the boys.
I'd probably go Drake.
Yeah.
To be honest, yeah. And then I'd go Headlines,
Yep.
Non-Stop, and Nice for What.
Good. Nice for what's good. Is he what you listen to in the sheds before a game or something?
Sometimes.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I like Drake because he's just good for every sort of like
Mood.
scenario. You know, you can be chill, you can be having a party.
Yeah, so many of these songs are going straight over Dad's head.
I know Drake. He's a Canadian guy, huh?
Yeah. Drake and Josh. If you could live anywhere else in the world, where would you go?
Anywhere else?
If you had to pack up and leave right now, you were banished by Peter Volandis. Where would you live?
I wouldn't want to live anywhere other than Australia, but does New Zealand count?
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
It's not Australia, so yeah.
Yeah,
that counts.
you can, yeah.
Yeah,
That's a good
Yeah.
one. All right. Would you rather be dumped in the ocean or in the middle of the desert?
Desert.
Why?
The ocean's just like it's scary.
Sharks.
Really?
Sharks, you just I don't know. I'm not I can swim, but I don't back myself swimming for like days on end.
Wild
And then-
camels are, we were talking the other day about it, the boys didn't understand, wild camels are quite, they're predators out in the desert.
Are they actually?
Yeah, they are.
Well,
heavy.
apparently. I've never heard it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Apparently they're really aggressive.
I've been spat. You've been spat on by a camel?
No,
Oh, mate.
I had an alpaca.
Yeah, I
but,
thought that was an alpaca thing.
yeah, I've been spat on by an alpaca before.
Tell you another one too. If ever you go to a zoo, you want to do this slyly because it'd be bad. Like mad front page of the paper saying that Nathan Cleary got a water pistol and sprayed perfume on a chimpanzee. If you spray aftershave or perfume on a primate, it'll start masturbating. Anyway, next question.
You found that out.
That's what I said to him. That's exactly what I said to him. So how do you know
Have you
that?
seen that in the flesh, or is it?
Word of mouth.
Okay. What about the best and worst accents?
I think the best sounding accent is like a Spanish accent.
Yeah.
But I find a lot of joy being around Pommies. I just think whenever they're just funny. Like with their accents, it just makes everything funny.
It's warming.
The Northerners.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
it's
Northerners,
funny. Like-
they're awesome. You like, mate?
Yeah, I was spent time in Manchester for the World Cup, like 8 weeks. I don't know. I actually enjoyed their accents.
Yeah.
What about the worst?
Probably Scottish. It's just so hard to understand.
Really?
It's so thick, and it's just hard to have a conversation.
Yeah,
sometimes.
fair enough.
What would you say? I was actually interested by your.
Oh, come on. Who are you going to offend?
Oh my God, yeah, I'm going through who. I'm not a massive fan of like that thick sort of Russian accent, mainly because it intimidates me. Like I get scared by it.
Yeah.
I was chatting to this dude the other day. I think it was he's Serbian, but it was, and we were having a friendly conversation, but it was just so dark.
It's Slavic language.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not nice. Like I didn't feel like it's not warming. Like
It's the stereotype they paint around, anyway.
what?
When you watch movies and all of a sudden it's either Russian mobsters or Chechen mobsters, that's it. It's yeah.
And the last one, okay. Let's say, God forbid, you pass away.
Oh God.
Yeah. And
State funeral.
yeah. Me and Dad, we're the pallbearers for
want that.
for the coffin.
I would want that.
Really?
It must have been that the Penrith bus went off the cliff because if we're the pallbearers,
What's the one song you'd want to put in the will to be playing as we're walking down?
What's suitable for like funeral music?
Not Drake.
I'd probably go. This is actually one of my favorite songs too, but "Love Yours" by J. Cole. It's
Love
like
Yours.
it's like a song about like appreciating what you have and not comparing yourself to others and that. So
I like that.
yeah, thanks.
Just
It's a tough question.
letting people know for the audio version, we have two birds that sit on my on the right side of the father. We've got Julian, who is the budgerigard, and we've got the toucan, which is Gabriel. Now, Julian, God bless him, he's bad luck, and Gabriel's good luck. Which one do you want? You got to pat one on the head.
Yeah, it's on the head.
Yeah, there you go. Of course, Gabriel.
Yeah, patted the good luck.
Yeah, Nathan, thank you so much, mate. Once again, I didn't have an opportunity during the off season to congratulate you, but great job, 3 in a row. You've established yourself as the best player in rugby league, and long may it continue. Well done.
I appreciate that. All the best with your guys' podcast as well.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Coop with retirement.
Thanks,
Congrats,
guys.
mate.
Thanks. Thank you, Nathan.
The thing that really struck me when Nathan walked in, firstly, is his size. You know, he's a big guy. In the 80s and 90s, he's a back rower.
Yeah, he's a strong ball runner too. Like, trying to tackle him, he's a really strong dude.
Geez, he's well thought out. He's deep thinker, isn't he? The way he answers every question.
Very deep. Like, you just know, especially when we're talking about his footy stuff, he's just so in depth, and everything he says carries so much meaning and thought. Like, he's someone. You got blokes in rugby league who it comes out of their mouth before it goes through their brain. Everything he does just travels through the brain first.
And he's such a modest, nice kid who's been so well raised. But don't worry, in that belly there's a cold-blooded killer.
Oh yeah.
You see some of his performances, and when he's really up for a contest.
Like you said, like I said on the podcast, like I've played against him a couple of times. I remember the first time I played against him, I was kind of like smiling, and because I'm not someone on the field that gets used to get too serious, as you can tell. But I'd always like be laughing and like get to a scrum and say something to him. And at the scrum, he'd kind of take the piss out of me and that. But like during the game, like he was just so on, I just knew that he would, like, just because we were mates outside of it, that he was just gonna pick me apart.
Yeah, and mate, to come, to let people know, we're in the Northern Beaches. He's come all the way over from Penrith, and he's turned around to go back again to give his time. He's very, very generous. He's a terrific fella, great ambassador for the game.
Bloody oath.
Cooper, well done. You made contact with Nathan, got him across. Good job, man.
Oh, thanks, Dad. Now you can get the next guest.
So proud of you, bud.